So, welcome to the last day of class. What we're going to do is revisit some topics about lists and strings and files. So, first topic we're going to revisit is the idea of slicing. So all I'm doing is I'm cranking up good old idle. I could even do it in the shell rather than make a file just to demonstrate. But if I do this, like n is equal to Robert, a string can be considered a list of characters. The big difference between a string and a list otherwise is that a string is immutable, meaning that it can't be changed. I couldn't just change that first R to a T. So if I tried to, this would work fine if it was a list. If I wanted to change the first element of a list, you can address it like that. But let's say I wanted to make it Mobbert. It says str object does not support item assignment. But I could print it out that way. If I do in subscript 0 and just do that, yeah, it knows that it's an R. It just doesn't let me change it because the string is, quote, immutable. All right, say that I want to get the first 3 characters out. I would use slicing. Something like this, in 0 subscript 3, or in subscript 0:3. That pulls out the character starting at 0, then the character at 1, and then the character at 2, and it stops at the character at 3, just like a range statement. A range statement stops, 1 before. If you want to count up to 9, you put comma 10. Same idea. An easier way in my mind to think about it is you just take the difference between the two. 3 minus 0 is 3, so starting at 0 and going 3 spots. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, just like that. So if I did name subscript 2:4, it's going to start at index value 2, and then how many characters long is the string going to be?
3.
4 minus 2 is 2. Yep. So it's going to start at 0, 1, 2, and it's going to print BE. So let's do one more. In 1:5, how many long is that going to be?
4.
5 minus 1 is 4, so starting at that one, because that's position 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to see it say Ober, like that. Now that's for strings, but arrays work the same way. Lists and arrays work the same way. So like if I do A is equal to, and I make up some numbers, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, like that. Except I'm supposed to be putting commas between them all because it's an array. If I want to get these values, well, I'm going to start it at what position? What's that one?
8. Well, 0.
It's at 0, and then if I want to get those, what's the length of them?
2. Well, there's...
I have 3 items selected, so it's going to be 3. So I'm going to start at 0, and I want 3 items, so 0 plus 3, like that'll get me 8, 7, 6. Now if I want to start at 4 and get 2, alrighty, well what position, what index value is 4? Well, it's that one, 0, 1, 2, 3. It starts at 4, and I want 2, so what's the second number going to be? 4 plus 2 is
2.
4 plus 2 is 2.
6. I thought we were talking about that line there.
Yeah, so I want to print out these 2 values. I've figured out the starting position, it's 4, and I want to get 2 values. So what's the second number going to be? Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, I want to find out A 4 colon, and if I want it to go out to 2 characters, what's the second index going to be?
7.
That would be 3. 7 minus 4 is 3. I want 2 characters starting at 4, so
It'd be 6.
yep, Yep, that'll give me 2 characters. See, 6 minus 4 is 2, so it's going to be 2 long, starting at position 4, which just happened to be at the number 4 as well. So if I do a 1 subscript 5, how many elements long is this going to be? Real easy, guys. Just 5 minus 1, 4. So, and which one of these numbers is it going to start at? 7. So it's going to be start at 7 and get 4 of them. How long is that one going to be?
It's going to be 5.
It's going to be 5 long, starting at
7.
the 7. So it's just going to go like that. If you leave off the first number, it assumes 0. That's like such a big saving in typing. I don't even know why they did it, but it's okay. All right, so it starts at 0. 4 minus 0 is 0, so we knew how long it was going to be. 4 long. If you leave off the second number, it goes from the position specified, like that. But if I don't specify the second number, it just goes to the end, like that. So that was position 4, and it went to the end. What if I do 0 colon and then like that? What is it going to display? Well, what's the first position? The 8. Yeah, and it's going to go and get the whole shebang from beginning to end. And if I'd left the colon out, same business, like that. And are there times when you want to do that? Well, there's one specific time. If I did this, if I said B is equal to A, and then I print out B, it looks like I made a copy of the list. But I didn't really. It's actually the same list. So if I do delete B subscript 0, I'm going to print out B, and I'm going to see that that 8 is gone, because what did I do? I deleted the first element. All right, but what about A? A is still going to have 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in it, right? Because it's copied. No, they are the same lists. So when I deleted it from B, it also looked like it deleted it from A. And it did, because they're just pointing to the same thing. It's like having 2 different street signs pointing to the same street. Just because you have a street sign on either end of the street, it's still the same street. So when we did this, B is equal to A, what we did is we said, I want a new reference to the A list. And so then whatever changes I make to one are automatically applied to the other. It's the same street. You build a new house on that street, it's there. Both street signs are pointing to the new house. But if you wanted a copy of the list so that you could do stuff to it while preserving the original list, then you could do that. This says make a copy of the list. The whole thing, starting from beginning and going to the end. Or not. I forgot to specify the list variable, sorry. Like that. Okay, so now C is a copy of the list. And then if I do something to C, like I delete the first element of the C array, sure, it's gone for C, but it's still there for A, because C is a copy of it. This is called cloning. We made a clone of it. Whereas this is just a copy of the reference. It's like building 2 street signs that point to the same street. This is like copying the street, copying every house on the street on a new street. So this is cloning, and this is just copying a reference. So that's why you might use that little business about doing, subscript, colon, subscript. So all this slicing business works with strings as well as with lists. So if we have a list of colors, C is equal to red, white, and blue, and I want just the first 2 values, print C subscript, well, the first one is at position 0, and I want 2 values, so 0 plus 2 is 2, and we get red and white. And if I want these 2, well, his index value is 1, so print C1:3. Or I could just take advantage of the fact that if you leave the second number off, it goes to the end. Like that.
So if you had to go, if you would have done 1:2, it would have been.
Well, 2 minus 1 is 1, so it would have been a length of 1. It would have only gotten white. Print C1:2. Starting at position 1, and then 2 minus 1 is 1, so it's just going to give me white. The other way to think about it is starting at position 1 and going up 2, but not including position 2. So that's 0 and 1. Exactly. Just some notes. Now I was just about to ask you how I would delete, say, that one from the list, or that one from the list. Say we wanted to get 7 out of that list.
You would do,
We could do delete a what?
A1.
A subscript 1.
Yeah.
Now my question that just popped into my head is, like, can I delete the first 4? By doing delete a 0:4, like that. I wonder if that'll work. It probably will. Let's find out. Alright, so that's what our A list looks like right now. And so A 0:4 is 7654. So if I do delete A 0:4, I think it's going to nuke all 4 of those, just leaving me with 321 when I print it out. Yep. So this deletes the element at index 1, and this deletes elements 0, 1, 2, and 3. Insert. We want to insert some things into our list. We just use the dot insert. If my list is called A dot insert. If my list is called L dot insert. I have several lists here. I have lists A, B, and C. Let's find out what's in list C. Okay, red, white, and blue. I want to insert the color yellow into my list. So C dot insert. I have to specify the position first. I want it to go into position 0. Whatever I type here is going to be the new position 0. You can insert things into anywhere in the list, not just at the beginning. If I wanted to put it here, if I wanted to say yellow, red, purple, white, blue, if I want purple to be inserted before white, well, white is at what index value? 2. So C dot insert into position 2, the color purple. Oprah's going to come. All right, here we go. Now we print this out, and yellow, red, purple, white, blue. What if you want to tack something onto the end of a list? What's the function for doing that? Yep, append. This is getting kind of messy. I'm going to close it, reopen it. Alright, so if I want to tack 16 onto there, then a dot append 16. Now, something Python supports with arrays that other languages I've used don't is, say you wanted to print out that value, but you didn't know how long the list was. If the question was, show me the last value in the list. Well, Python being Python makes it easy. It looks silly, but this works. Every other language would croak and say that there's no possible way you could have an index -1, right? Because if that's 0, then what's -1? It's off the map, right? But Python being Python says that the last one could be accessed by -1. So that would be index -1, index -2, index -3, and index -4. Why would you bother? Because sometimes you want the last position, but you don't want to go to the trouble of figuring out the length. You know, what's the length of the list? The length of this list is 4. So if we wanted to print that one out, we could print out len a -1, because that's going to get us 3. That's really what we want, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's one way of printing out the last one. It sure is nice just to be able to do that. They both get us the last value. So to access the last element of a list in Python, this is specific to Python, use the index value -1. So to print the last value, you would do print C subscript -1. Saves you from having to do print C subscript len C in parentheses -1, like that. Now I'm going to take the parentheses out. I mean the extra spaces out. Like that. They both do the same thing. Alright, so let's do something in idle, but I want you to go ahead and do it. Make a new file. And it's going to be pretty similar to our homework. Make an empty list named cars. Remember how to do an empty list? You just do variable name and then square braces with nothing between them. Except in this case it's going to be cars. And then append the names of 3 cars. You're just going to have to do, well, I was just about to say something that's not strictly true. When I say append the names of 3 cars, here's what I meant, and then I'll show you what you can really do. A dot append, right, and then just type on a new number, and then do that 3 times. You know, I want to append 2 more, but a dot, you can also append a list to a list. So if I wanted to append 3 numbers to that list, I could do it like that. Nope, I am so wrong. Okay, cool. Forget what I was about to say. Anyways, append the names of 3 cars one at a time. Then delete the first car and insert a different car at the beginning of the list. So go ahead and do that. Then of course in just a minute I'll do it as well. Alright, so to make an empty list, you just use equal square braces. What's our list variable called? And I'm not going to use list because I specified a variable. What's my variable called? What's the name of the variable that I want to append to? Or that I want to assign? Cars. So it's going to be cars equals square brace. Like that. And now, when we append it, here I'm going to do it wrong, and then I'm going to fix it. Cars.append Miata. Now, there's something absolutely wrong with that. That'll crash when I run it. The reason why is that I don't have a variable. I have no entity known as Miata. I could do that. I could do this, but that would be silly. Just put quotes around it. And then do it 2 more times for 2 more cars. Do they still make Z cars? I'm old. Alrighty. So what's the syntax for deleting the first car from the list?
Del cars square brace 0.
Yep. If I wanted to remove the second one, it would be subscript 1 and so on. Now I'm curious and I want to hit Wikipedia to find out why in the world Nissan called their US cars Datsun. It's not like Datsun's a cooler name than Nissan. Alright, so anyways, and then I'm going to insert a new car at the beginning of the list. Cars.insert, well, I deleted my Miata, so I'm going to put a Fiat Spider in there or something. I don't really know my cars. Alright, there we go. And I should print it out. I should have tacked on one more comment of stuff I wanted you to do. So print the list. Well, it's not going to be list.print or anything like that. I'm just going to do print cars. And then just like you were trying to do, the last thing we're going to do is use a for loop to print the list out. I'm going to remove some spaces so I can get all this stuff on the same page. Alright. So the last one, print the list with a for loop. For, and it doesn't matter what the variable is called as long as you use the same variable. So I'm going to use V for value. But I could call it for Fred in cars. Print Fred. But I'm going to do for V in cars. Print V. Like that. And I'm going to hope it works. And kaboom. What did I do wrong with my insert statements? Here I am acting all big and I goofed.
Square brace.
You didn't specify the place to insert, so you have to put a 0 in the comma.
Right, I need 0, comma. Alright. So when I print them out, Fiat, Honda, Nissan. Is there a Fiat Spider? Fiat Spider. Well, it's spelled with an I. Alright, so. Herpaderp. Yeah, there we go.
I think what you were thinking was an Alfa Romeo Spider.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, although it may seem like overkill, we're going to do the same thing again. Here's what I want you to do. declare a list named fruit. It's not going to be an empty list, with initializing it with 3 fruits, orange, banana, whatever. So 3 elements. Do that. Insert a new fruit into the beginning. Delete the second fruit. Append another fruit. And then print the list with a loop. Alright, so I'm gonna play along as well. Fruit equals, and I'm gonna pick 3 fruit. So I wouldn't make it list equals, even though it says declare a list, but I give you a variable name. So fruit equals, and I'm gonna list 3 fruits. And if I put stuff without doing quotes, that'll be wrong. So I want a kiwi fruit, I want a peach, and a nectarine. Now insert into the beginning. Fruit dot insert. Whatever. Tangerine. Delete the second fruit. How am I going to do that? DEL. What next?
Second fruit, it'd be del fruit.
Subscript.
And then 1.
Right. Now I'm going to append fruit dot append apple. Then I'm going to print it out with a loop. So for v in fruit, print v. And then I'm going to remove some spaces, some blank lines, just to make it all pretty. Cool. Hey, I did it again. The same exact problem I did the last time. What's wrong with my insert?
You didn't tell it where to go exactly.
Right. I'm going to tell myself where to go. Let's put a 0 there. Alright. There. I've sated my earthly desire. Lots of cars and lots of fruit. Okay. And we can make it with idle. We can make it with, Notepad. I think I'm going to make it with Notepad. I better save my notes here.
Oh dear Lord, I forgot I did this.
Alright, so firing up Notepad or your favorite text editor. Since fruit are on my brain, I'm going to create a file that's a list of fruit. Banana, apples, oranges. Then I'm going to veer off topic. Add some vegetables, green beans, sprouts, and tomatoes, which are actually fruit. Okay, so I'm going to save my text file. If you are doing that in Python, you're going to have to swap the type. You're going to have to swap the type to do a save as type and make it text. But I did it in Notepad, so it's already defaulting to text. Just make sure that you save it in your programming directory so that when you run it, it can find it. And I'm going to call it fruit.txt rather than input.txt just because I had an input.txt file left over. Alright, so to open a file, you generally follow this syntax. You have to get a file name. We could just assign it, or we could ask the user for it. But anyways, you have to get a file name, and then you do file equals open. I think I called my file name path. I don't remember. It works either way. File equals open, parentheses file name. And if I'm opening it for reading, I do comma R. If I'm opening for writing, I do comma W. In this case, I'm processing a file for reading. And then I need a for loop to read it in line by line. And it's like I showed you all several ways of processing a file. I'm just zeroing in on the most efficient, the easiest one to write, and the one that runs very quickly. So I need a for loop. I like saying for data in file. Now remember, again, variable names are meaningless. I could call the variable, Tony Stark. Tony Stark equals open, and then for file and for data in Tony Stark. Variable names are just for us. That's all we care about. Okay. And then I like to strip it. Data equals data.strip. What does that do? It removes the line feed at the end, because there's always an enter key tucked in at the end of a line. And it also removes any leading spaces, like if it was tabbed over or something like that. Once it's stripped, if these were numbers, I would convert them. Data equals float data, something like that. But these aren't numbers. These are names of fruit and veggies. So I'm not going to do that. I think just for beginning, before I do anything else, I'm just going to print the fruit. So print data. And anytime you are done processing a file, you want to close the file. Alright, now for some reason I was switching between pseudocode and actual Python code. So, where I say get a file name, how have we been getting our file name? How did we do that on Monday?
You do an open.
Not getting the file itself. How did we ask the user for which file to open?
Oh, you do a print statement and then the input.
Yeah, that sounds good. Print what file to open? Question mark. Or open what file? Something like that. And now I'm going to do my input statement. I'm not going to just do input parentheses. I have to assign the results to a variable. So file name equals input. Now it's not a number, so I'm not going to do int or float. I'm going to change that get a file name to just a comment. And I think I'll add a comment here for file equals open, which is open the file for reading. Why I didn't actually put this in my source code, I don't know. If you've done that, you're one up on me. Okay, and then closing the file. How do I close the file?
File.close.
Yep, file.close. If the file variable was called something else, input file equals open, then later on I would need to do input file.close. Alright, this opens a file, prints it out line by line, and then closes it. I'm just going to tack that on to the end of my array code here. So I'm going to retype it, but it's not going to take me long. I type fast. If you have already got this typed in, great. Okay, so process a file for reading. So get the file name. Print what file to open, or open what file. File name equals input. And then open the file for reading. Don't type all this twice if you've already got it. I should have just copied and pasted. File equals open, file name, comma R. And then for data in file, colon. data equals data.strip. I recommend doing that every time. And then print data. Then I'm going to close the file. File.close. Alright, now since I have my fruit.txt file all ready to go, or whatever you called it, I should be able to run it and have it work. Open one file, fruit.txt, and it printed out my fruit. Now my homework assignment asked you to check to see whether something was all ups, you know, all uppercase or all lowercase, or whether it was numbers or anything like that. You would just insert that logic here in the for loop. We could do something like that. Why don't we check to see if the name of the fruit is all lowercase? So I'm going to add a line here. And it's going to be if, and then what's the name of my string in this case? Don't do if string dot is lower. Why? Because that's not our variable. What is our string variable in this case? What have we been reading stuff in? And it's not file, that's where it's coming from. Data. So if data dot is lower, parentheses in parentheses, colon, print all lowercase. Now let's check to see if it's all uppercase. Apparently this is really important to us. If data dot is upper, colon, print quote, all uppercase. That's a little bit different from your homework. I'll show you the modification we would make it. We would make it exactly like our homework assignment. Why don't I put that print data line above all those ifs? Because why would we say all lowercase before we saw what the word was that we just read? So I'm going to cut that print data, move it straight after the data.strip. Alright, so open what file? Fruit.txt. And actually, all of my data was lowercase. Now the homework assignment was a little bit different. What it asked you to do, if I recall, is to print the name of the word followed by lowercase or uppercase, something like that. Or if it was digits, to print the variable followed by digits. So I'll show you how to do that as well, just because that was part of the homework assignment. And you would modify your print statement to match if you wanted to, if you care about the lowercase and the uppercase. Yeah, let's just do it now. Here where it says print, what if we wanted to print the word itself before the word's all lowercase? Well, I could do data comma. That would print the word itself before printing the string all lowercase. And I'm going to do the same thing to is upper. Print data comma all uppercase. And when I wanted to do digits, I would do is digit. Oddly, it's not plural, it's singular, to check to see if it's all digits. So I'm going to tag that one on. If data dot is digit, parentheses in parentheses, print data comma all digits. I'm going to have to modify my test data, right? I don't have anything in there that's all digits, and I don't have anything in there that's all uppercase or mixed case or anything like that. It won't take long to modify my fruit file to match. Alright, so open what file? Let's do it again. Fruit.txt. All right, banana all lowercase, apples all lowercase, you know, whatever. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put some uppercase in here. For some reason, I like strawberries so much, I'm going to do it all uppercase. And then I'm going to do something that's mixed case. Peach. Jizz. And then I'm going to do something that's all numbers. I don't know why suddenly a number shows up in my fruit.txt file. And then I'm going to type something that's mixed. Like, I don't know, somebody name a veggie.
Tomato?
Isn't tomato a fruit?
No.
Oh,
Cucumber.
God. Quick, somebody give this man a vegetable.
Yeah, cucumber, 1, 2, 3. And then something in all caps. What's another veggie? Lettuce. But I want it all caps. Okay, just to be testing it. The data is kind of silly at this point, but I'm just doing that to test it. All right, open what file? Fruit.txt. All right, now our output is kind of messy because it's printing first the word and then it's printing all lowercase and then it's printing the word and it's printing all uppercase, but that's okay. Now it's kind of funny that it treats numbers as uppercase, but I guess that's okay. No, I'm not going to complain. That's the way they programmed it. No, it ignores numbers completely as far as lowercase and uppercase are concerned. It thinks that cucumber 1, 2, 3, when the word is in lowercase, is all lowercase. And so it's just ignoring the digits when it checks for uppercase or lowercase. That's all right. And then there we go, lettuce 4, 5, 6. The word was in all caps, and so it decided that it was all uppercase. And we only had one line that was all digits. This one doesn't count as all digits because it had some letters in it as well. Same for that one. And we had something that was mixed case. We never checked for mixed case, so it didn't print anything special for that. Ignored it completely. I think I'm going to comment out that first print statement so that I wouldn't even see the word peaches. So I'm going to go back to my code, comment out the first print statement, and then I'm going to kind of like my output a little bit better. I'm going to think it's a little bit cleaner.
And Jeff.
Yep, I like that better. Okay. Yes, sir.
Wait. No, I see no problem.
Okay. Okay, we're going to do one more of these, but we're going to do it with numbers. And go ahead and actually do this in your code rather than doing it in notes, because I'm just going to paste it onto my notes later. So what I want to do in this case is I'm going to make a file that just is a series of numbers, and maybe we'll add up all the numbers and print out the total. So I need to make a new file. So I'm in Notepad. I'm going to do File, New File. Just type in some numbers, and they could be digits or, floating point numbers or integers. Many as you feel like. And then save it into your programming directory. I'm going to call it nums.txt. So if you want to, you could append this to your existing Python script, or you can make a brand new one. I'm kind of feeling like making a brand new one. This one's getting kind of lengthy. So over here in idle, I'm going to do new file and just call it July 25B. So I've got my nums.txt file. I'm making a new Python file. Save as July25b.py. It's about time for a break, actually. Let's take a 10-minute break and get back to 1:30. Wind back up at 1:35. Just start it. All right. So here's what our data is going to look like. If you're watching this at home, one person's absent. You're going to want the first line of your code, first line of your text file, nums.txt, is going to be the number of test scores, not the number of people in it, just the number of test scores. So we're going to assume that there will be up to 5 test scores after that. And then on each line, it's going to be somebody's name separated by commas, followed by the test scores separated by commas. So we're going to read it in with a for loop. That's going to be data, and then we're going to split the data into an array, and then we're going to process that array by checking it one item at a time. And if it's a string, that's part of their name, so we're going to print the string out. And then if it's a number, we're going to add it to the total for that person, an accumulator. We've done that before where we added up all the numbers. And then we're going to calculate the average, which is going to be the sum of those numbers. So just go ahead and create your text file, pause it, and then crank up an idle file, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so as usual, I've been forgetting to do this, but let's put our name up there. My name, the name of the program, July 25, 2018, last day of class. Yay. All right. Just like all of our others, we're curious about what file we have to open. So let's do file name or path, whatever. We're just going to do the same thing. We're going to print what is the scores file name. Then let's do an input. Remember, if you're doing input, do not just put the word input unless all it is a prompt. Press any key to continue. Instead, we have to store its result in a variable. File name is equal to input. Then we're going to want to open our file. File equals open, parentheses, file name, comma, quote R. Then we're going to have our for loop for data in file. And it's in there that all the magic occurs. I'm just going to type the word for there, and then I'm going to do a file.close. I'm going to go back in and fill in the for loop, of course. The same for loop that we've used in all of our other file applications will work here as well. So for data in file. So at this point, we have a string full of data. We've read a line of data. It's a string. We're going to convert it to a list. And we haven't done that today, but we did it in previous class periods. We're going to use .split. But .split assumes spaces, so we're going to have to specify that we're splitting on commas instead. So data is equal to data.split, parentheses, quote, comma, quote. I forgot to trim the data first, to strip the data. So above that line, I'm going to do data is equal to data.strip. Data equals data.strip. Like that. So that creates an array. Data.split turned data into an array of data. A list of data. So we're going to use a for loop, just like on the lists that we were doing earlier today. For V, for value in data, is going to be our for loop. But we're going to need to initialize a couple of variables beforehand so that we can add up their scores. We're going to need a scores variable, a scores list, and we're going to need a name variable, a name string. So after our data equals data.split, we need an empty string and we need an empty scores list. So name equals quote quote. And what are we going to do? Each time we read a word, we're going to append it onto name. I don't remember whether you can call .append on a string. My guess is not. Strings are immutable. But we can work around that pretty easy. That's not true in all languages. In C and C++, strings are not immutable. In Java and Python, they are. Okay, and then let's make an empty list called scores. And before we go nuts adding additional programming, let's just print the data and run the program. So data in quotes, and we don't even need to put quotes around it. Let's not describe what the data is. All right. And then an end for comment. Because I don't want to go nuts and type in 100 more lines of code when we haven't got it working this far. Okay, what is the scores file name? nums.txt is mine. And there's my data. Oops, I forgot something. What did I forget? I forgot that the first number was going to be the number of test scores. I'm not liking that logic, but I don't know what to do about it. I think I'm just going to have to read a line before I go to my loop. If you recall from Monday, there's more than one way to read a file. One of the commands for reading a file is .readLine. So we can take care of this line before our for loop. That's what we're going to do. But I'm going to pause it and make sure that we're all caught up. So flipping back to our code so you can take another look at it. Okay, so here's where before we read our file in with a for loop, we need to get that first value in, which is the number of scores. So we got to put this before our for loop. Num scores equals file.readLine, parentheses in parentheses, just to get that first line out of the way. But then we need to convert it to a number. So let's do num scores equals float num scores. Num scores equals float, parentheses num scores. Because it read it in as a string. The entire file is a string until we start converting it. You know what I'd like to do is to make this line here, and let's not make a list of scores, let's just add them on to a total score variable. So you see where your scores equals, just delete that line. Total is equal to 0. So here's the line that we just added, and we just added these two lines. Num scores is equal to file.readLine, and num scores is equal to float num scores. Okay, so we need to process our data. We need a nested for loop. So underneath name is equal to empty string and total is equal to 0. We're going to do for v, or in data. That's going to be every element of that array. And if v is a name, we're going to add it to our name. Excuse me, if v is not a number. If it is a number, if it is digit, then we're going to add it to our total. So let's do that. If v.isDigit, and this is inside of our for v loop, which is nested inside for data, if v is digit, parentheses in parentheses colon, we need to convert it to a number, to a float, and then we need to add it to total. So v equals float v, and then let's add that to our total. Total plus, or total equals total plus v. However you like doing your, we usually use plus equals, don't we? All right. else it's not numbers and it's part of the name. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because we're pretty sure that top stuff worked. Else, colon, names equals names plus V plus a space. Just because we have to have spaces between each word, right? We don't want it to say John Roberts with no space between them. Now, after that, let's print out the total. Let's skip calculating the average, and let's just print out the names, comma, followed by the total. Why did I make it names? Take off the S on names. It's just name. So make it name equals name plus V plus space. We could have probably also done name plus equals. That would have shortened our typing. All right, lastly, print parentheses, their name followed by their total. And this needs to be unindented. It needs to be on the same level that this print data was. It needs to be outside of the loop, outside of the inner loop. So take that print statement and undent it. I'm going to run it and make sure that it works. Seems like it's working. I see somebody's name and I see their total. All we have to do is add their average. I'm going to do that because it's only 2 more lines of code, and then we'll pause it and do walkabout, make a Dropbox, that kind of stuff. Okay. So the last thing I want to do, and I know that I might be going a little bit fast, but we're only going to make 3 more changes. One is I want to get rid of that print data. We don't need to see the raw data anymore. I mean, it might be nice. I'm going to nuke it though. And above that print name, comma, total, we need to calculate their average. Or we could just do it right here. And let's calculate their average. It's always nice to have a variable created beforehand before we print it out. So how do you calculate the average? It's equal to the total divided by the num scores. So my print statement, my variable average equals total divided by num scores. And then on the next line, it's going to be print parentheses name, comma, total, comma, num scores. It's plausible this is going to work. nums.txt or whatever you called your score file. Alrighty, there's a little glitch at the end. The glitch at the end is caused by a blank line of data. Or there's a 0 at the end. I don't know what that is. Let me go and find my nums.txt file. I had a blank line of data at the end of my... I'm going to make it ignore blank lines. That seems like a clean idea to me. Rather than force the txt file to be absolutely perfect, I'm going to instead modify this file to ignore blank lines of data. So after we strip it, that'll be where we check to see if it's blank or not, or after we split it. If we've read it in and so right here at our strip, let's do it there. I'm going to add a line after my data equals data.strip, which is going to say if data equals quote quote, meaning it's empty, continue. Skip all the rest of the stuff. Just go back and execute the loop again. Because we don't need to split it, we don't need to create a name and add a total if the line was empty to begin with. Alright, it's going to work now, so I'm going to pause it and we're going to be done. nums.txt, and I'll do walkabout. Okay, I like the way that looks. It prints out the total and it prints out the average. Now that was real dumb. My average is 5 every time. Why is that? It's not that the average is 5 every time. What's wrong with my print statement? Somebody's got to spot it. You see why it's printing out 5 every time? Because num scores is equal to 5. I don't care about the num scores. I care about the average. I need to replace num scores with average. Oop, I don't have that file name. Run it again. nums.txt. And there they are with no blank line messing things up. That's pretty cool. The only thing that would make it even more awesome is if we could break it up into classes. If our data kind of looked like this, and I'm not going to do it, but if I found my nums file and it, oh man, did I close my nums file? Alright. What I think would be neat is if I could have like a class name, right? CIT1113. And then another class name, you know, CIT1173. That kind of thing. But I think we've made the example adequate for our purposes, and also we're at the end of the class period. Alrighty. I'm going to make a Dropbox, and then I'll do walkabout. Make sure that everybody who wants to get it finished can do so. Sorry to cover up the code for a minute.
For the text file, did you put name and then their score, or how did you do it? Because I put name and then score, and it's saying that it can't convert string to a float, and it won't divide out.
All right, let me come look. All right, if you're happy with it, it's tutorial M, Dropbox M. Let me bring the code back up. I'm going to take out that little thing. All right, the only thing that's missing on this is that there was a close statement at the bottom of it. So pause this, type it in if you haven't already done so. Remember to create your scores file like that. And you're good to go. So I hope you've had a good semester. Let's stop. So if you've had spaces in your numbers file, it's not been behaving correctly. But we can fix that. How do we fix that? We just need to strip each element, you know, because if we just read in space 100, it's not going to count it as numbers, and so it's never going to do this.
I
So
figured it out. I didn't have a 5 at the top of the number.
oh, okay. Well, let's do this anyways. And so v equals v dot strip. We're going to add this line here to remove all spaces. So add this line, remove spaces from data. And now it'll ignore spaces, and so that's cool. We're not demanding perfectly formatted data. Okay.